Why Sparta left weak babies today. In the ancient world, few civilizations were as militaristic and ruthless as Sparta. Known for their legendary warriors, the 300 who stood at Thermopylae, and their unforgiving social system, the Spartans practiced customs that would shock us today. Perhaps none more so than their treatment of newborn babies deemed unfit for their warrior society. This is the story of why Sparta left weak babies to die, a practice that reveals the dark heart of one of history's most feared civilizations. To understand this brutal practice, we must first understand Sparta itself. Located in the Peloponnese region of ancient Greece, Sparta was not just a city-state. It was a military machine. Every aspect of Spartan society was designed around one central goal: creating the perfect warrior. Unlike Athens, which celebrated philosophy, art, and democracy, Sparta valued only strength, discipline, and military prowess. Their entire social structure revolved around producing soldiers who could defend their homeland and maintain their dominance over the enslaved Helot population, who outnumbered them 10 to 1. In this society, weakness was not just discouraged, it was seen as a threat to the very survival of the state. And this philosophy began at birth. When a baby was born in Sparta, its fate was not determined by its parents' love or desire to raise it. Instead, the child's destiny lay in the hands of the Gerousia, a council of 28 elders over 60 years old, plus the 2 kings of Sparta. According to ancient sources, particularly the historian Plutarch, newborn babies were brought before this council for inspection. The elders would examine each child carefully, looking for signs of physical defects, weakness, or deformity. If the baby was deemed strong and healthy, it would be allowed to live and eventually join Spartan society. But if the child showed any signs of physical weakness, disability, or was considered sickly, the council would make a horrifying decision. The baby would be taken to Mount Taygetus and left to die. Mount Taygetus, rising over 2,000 meters above sea level, became known as the place where Sparta disposed of its unwanted children. The mountain's rocky slopes and harsh conditions meant that any baby left there would perish quickly from exposure, starvation, or wild animals. This location, called the Apothetae or deposits, was specifically chosen for this grim purpose. The Spartans believed that children who could not survive the harsh conditions of the mountain certainly could not survive the rigors of Spartan military training or contribute meaningfully to their warrior society. The practice was not hidden or shameful in Spartan eyes, it was seen as a necessary duty to the state. They believed they were preventing the weak from contaminating their bloodlines and ensuring that only the strongest genes would be passed on to future generations. From our modern perspective, this practice seems unimaginably cruel and barbaric. But to understand the Spartans, we must examine the reasoning behind their actions, however disturbing it may be. First, Sparta faced constant military threats. They were surrounded by enemies and relied heavily on their military superiority to survive. They believed that maintaining a population of only the strongest individuals was essential for their defense. Second, resources in ancient Sparta were limited. Every member of society needed to contribute to the common good. Those who could not fight, work, or reproduce strong offspring were seen as burdens the state could not afford to support. Third, the Spartans genuinely believed in eugenic principles, the idea that selective breeding could improve the human race. They thought that by eliminating the weak and allowing only the strong to reproduce, they could create a superior generation of warriors. Finally, Spartan culture placed the needs of the state above individual rights or family bonds. Personal feelings and parental love were considered secondary to the greater good of Sparta. This collective mentality made such harsh practices not only acceptable, but praiseworthy. Those babies who passed the initial inspection faced a childhood unlike anywhere else in the ancient world. At age 7, boys were taken from their families and placed in the eugenics, a brutal military training system designed to forge them into perfect soldiers. The training was deliberately harsh and unforgiving. Boys were given minimal food, forced to sleep outdoors, and subjected to physical and psychological tests designed to weed out the weak. Many did not survive this process either. Girls, while not subjected to military training, were also raised under harsh conditions. They were expected to become strong mothers who could bear healthy warrior sons. Physical fitness and toughness were valued over traditional feminine qualities. This system produced some of history's most formidable warriors, but at an enormous human cost. The Spartans sacrificed compassion, family bonds, and individual happiness for military excellence. While ancient historians like Plutarch documented these practices, modern scholars debate how widespread and systematic the exposure of babies actually was. Some argue that the stories may have been exaggerated by later writers who wanted to emphasize Spartan brutality. Archaeological evidence from Mount Taygetus has been mixed. While some infant remains have been found, they are not as numerous as the historical accounts might suggest. This has led some historians to propose that the practice may have been less common than traditionally believed, or that it may have been reserved for only the most severely disabled children. However, the weight of historical evidence suggests that some form of infant exposure did occur in Sparta, even if the exact details remain debated. This brutal practice continued for centuries until Sparta's decline. As their military power waned and their population dwindled, the Spartans could no longer afford to dispose of any potential citizens. The rise of Christianity also brought new values that emphasized the sanctity of all human life. By the Roman period, Sparta had become more of a tourist attraction than a military power, and their harsh customs gradually disappeared. The Spartan practice of exposing weak babies serves as a stark reminder of how societies can justify terrible acts in the name of the greater good. It shows us the dangerous path that opens when we value strength above compassion, when we see human beings as resources rather than individuals with inherent worth. Today, as we face our own challenges and debates about genetic screening, disability rights, and social welfare, the Spartan example reminds us that our treatment of the most vulnerable members of society reflects our deepest values. The babies left on Mount Taygetus had no voice, no advocate, and no chance. Their silent testimony echoes through history, challenging us to build societies that protect the weak rather than dispose of them. In remembering this dark chapter of human history, we honor those forgotten children and commit ourselves to ensuring that such cruelty never returns.